Hey, welcome everybody to the 40 Finance channel. My name's Jeff Beers. Today I'm going to look at Apple stock in a little different way than I did at the beginning of the year. We are about halfway through the year. We've been through a pretty big roller coaster ride already. Apple stock as of this video is at the 320 mark. And the question is Apple stock a buy at $320 in the year 2020? Let's jump in. Before we start though, as always, my disclaimer that my stock picks and projections are for entertainment purposes only. Please talk to a financial professional before jumping into investing. However, if you do enjoy stock market analysis, personal finance videos, and investing tips, then please subscribe to the 40 Finance channel. Thank you to everybody who's subscribed so far. Alright, so since my last 2020 Apple stock analysis, there's been a lot of changes in the world, most notably, of course, the pandemic. And looking at this through the lens of simply Apple sales, like everybody else, they were impacted by COVID, not only from the production lines that make their products, but also through the sale of their products. While the online e-commerce continued to go on, Apple shut all of its stores internationally. They're just now starting to open up. But with all those headwinds going on, Apple still performed pretty well for their quarter that ended in March. And you see this from their 10K, that total net sales increased 1%, or $298 million during the second quarter of 2020 compared to the same quarter of 2019. Primarily driven by higher services, wearables, home, and accessory net sales, but offset by lower iPhone net sales. This weakness has to do with currencies relative to the US dollar and, of course, the COVID impact as well. And you see on the bottom box that I highlighted, these are the net sales by category. And the bottom two, wearables, home, accessories, and services, were all up pretty remarkably year over year. But all the core products, most notably iPhone sales, were down by 7% quarter over quarter. Not a big surprise, but I just thought I'd share these numbers as we dig into where Apple stock stands as of today. Alright, so Apple stock is currently trading at $321 as of the last part of May in 2020. You see on the chart here that Apple is inching closer to their 52-week high of $327. Current PE ratio is 25-27. You do get a dividend with Apple, which is nice for a so-called growth stock at 1% yield as of today. And up at the top there, the forward PE just goes up ever so slightly to 26. And the trailing 12-month revenue was $268 billion. They've got $94 billion cash on hand and a debt load of $118 billion. So pretty solid balance sheet there. While $118 billion would be capable of drowning most companies, the fact that Apple has almost that amount in cash, not to mention that they drive, 2.5 times that every year in revenue, I don't think we have to worry about that debt load as of today. Alright, so is Apple stock expensive today compared to where it has traded over the past 12 months or so? In order to do that, we just take a quick look at the valuation metrics over the past several quarters. And on this chart here, you got your current quarter off to the far left. So if you pick up the trailing PE row, currently at 24.76, you see that that is somewhat higher than what we've seen. If you go back to 1 year ago, trailing PE was 15.57. Now you're at 24.76. On the forward side, you got a 26.74 for the forward PE, and you go back 1 year and that was down to 16.58. So it's definitely trading at a higher valuation today than it was almost in every quarter that we've recently seen. In addition to that, price and sales and price to book both have went up relatively significantly. So Apple is definitely not on sale right now. And I think that, to be honest with you, it's not just them. It's this stock market run up that we've seen that's driving prices higher in anticipation of the world sort of getting back to normal. All right, taking a look at the TipRanks dashboard to see what the best performing analysts say about Apple over the next 12 months. Shout out as always to TipRanks. I am a paid subscriber. Use their services to measure analyst sentiment about stock, as well as to track things like hedge fund purchases, insider trading transactions, and comparisons to other stocks. My affiliate link is in the description if you're interested in learning more about TipRanks and supporting the channel. All right, on the Apple side for TipRanks, we have 21 analysts out of the best performing category. We got 21 of them that have a buy rating on this, 3 holds and 1 sell. The target price right now across all analysts is $322. Apple, of course, was trading at $321 right before I made this video. So not a lot of margin in there in the immediate term, right? And this is the projected analyst, median projected analyst price for the next 12 months. We got a high bar of 370 and a low bar of 243. So there's clearly one person in here that's riding a pretty hardcore bear case. But I think the point out of this, sharing this screen right here, is just that Apple is a good company fundamentally, and they have a lot of things going for them. But I think what I'm seeing from the data that was shown so far in this video is that this might be the high side of their price targets. All right, so like I said, Apple fundamentally is a good company, right? And I think that they have many bright years ahead. And a lot of people will point to like the 5G revolution that we've been talking about for so long, new phone launch supposedly in Q3 or Q4. All those things are working in Apple's favor at the bare minimum. But if there's one place that they're struggling right now that I personally worry about, that place is China. And as we all know, China is a gigantic population base, particularly for electronics and technology. And Apple has struggled there in China over the past 12 to 18 months. And the question for me is just how long can they continue to struggle in China, particularly from a growth aspect, and still cash in on the high revenues and profit margins that China has helped Apple achieve over the last several years. This chart here is out of Apple's 2019 annual report, and it's net sales by reportable segment, aka geography. And you see that the #1 market for Apple by far is America. And America had a 4% growth over 2018 in 2019. Europe comes in second, but that third row that's highlighted, Greater China, saw a 16% decrease in net sales between 2018 and 2019. So definitely an eye-opener on that segment. And I highlighted the commentary that they included down below. Greater China net sales decreased during 2019 compared to 18, due primarily to lower iPhone net sales and partially offset by higher wearables, home, accessories, and services sales. The weakness in foreign currencies relative to the US dollar had an unfavorable impact on Greater China net sales during 2019. All right, so basically Apple's saying that currency exchange rates is part, if not all, of the reason for this change in net sales. And I'm sure that that's true to some extent, but what we would have to see over time is, does net sales have to go up some way somehow, right? So Apple would either have to figure out how to sell more units, assuming that we would still have an unfavorable currency exchange rate, or they would simply have to mark up the cost of the units, because you can't have unfavorable currency as your problem for growth going forward across the next 2 or 3 years. So if it is indeed a currency problem, I kind of have my doubts about that, but let's say it's combined with a net unit growth, then they definitely have some things to work on the China side. So we all know that 5G has been made out to be this huge savior of the world for all these technology companies, and everybody's going to run out and upgrade their phones. You know, that was the bull thesis not too long ago. I'm not sure how much COVID has impacted that thesis, because we do know that millions and millions of Americans are losing their job, and it's likely the same thing in other countries as well. Regardless though, 5G is becoming a thing in America and China is actually one step ahead of us on the rollout of their network. While this sounds like a good thing for Apple, the truth is that Apple has competitors like Huawei who are already rolling out 5G phones, and Apple has yet to make that same announcement. I grabbed this quick piece from CNBC. A number of Chinese vendors, including Huawei and Xiaomi, have released 5G smartphones, but Apple has not yet unveiled one. This is important because 5G devices are expected to account for 40% of total smartphone sales in China in 2020, according to Counterpoint Research. Now, assuming COVID has definitely impacted whatever Counterpoint Research did to come up with the 40% number, let's just roll that back a little bit because of the likely international economic situation, and let's just pretend 25% of phones purchased in China in 2020 are going to be 5G compatible. That's still a lot of pressure on Apple to get this 5G not only unit out into China, but how about let's make an announcement about it sometime soon. You sort of also have to wonder, because Apple released a more inexpensive version of their iPhone this year, the question will become, do they put 5G in that phone? And if they do, how does it impact margins on their bigger, better line? And if Huawei is coming into China and releasing a cheaper 5G phone, how stiff is the competition going to be? So again, for me right now with Apple, it's all eyes on China. I feel pretty good about where they're at in the United States, but I think China is a little bit of a question mark, and they're going to have to come out swinging. All right, so bottom line for me right now with Apple, is Apple a buy at $320? I'm going to say not right now. I think that there's enough ambiguity in the market, and I think there's enough uncertainty in China for Apple that I wouldn't be a buyer at this near 52-week high of 320. I would be targeting prices underneath that, and I probably wouldn't open a new position in Apple until we got through another stock market dip that put it below the $300 mark. There's no denying the long-term value of Apple for investors who are going to buy and hold for several years, but I just don't know if 2020 is going to be a breakout year for this particular stock. We know that 5G is going to lead to some changes in behavior. It will likely lead to some upgrades in the phone space. But the real question is, will the global economic situation impact those sales? It just feels like 2020 isn't the right blend of a year for the 5G revolution if everybody's struggling to keep a job. And lastly, as I've already mentioned a couple times, it boils down to China for me. If they can't get China numbers to turn into a growth story somewhere between the end of 2020 or 2021, then Apple is not going to go bankrupt. They are not going to run out of money, but they are going to face some significant headwinds on getting their stock price to go up at the same pace it has been. You take China out of their growth equation, and we know that US is a fairly developed market, and there's probably only more competition in that space. I worry about Apple's growth prospects without the China in the formula, if that makes any sense. So that's my take on Apple stock. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Please give me a like and subscribe if you did. I'll see you on the next video.